Sutonipata Way to the Beyond, Kappa's question. Next was the Brahmin student Kappa. "Sir," he said, "there are people stuck midstream in the terror and the fear of the rush of the river of being, and death and decay overwhelm them. For their sakes, sir, tell me where to find an island. Tell me where there is solid ground beyond the reach of all this pain." "Kappa," said the Master, "for the sake of those people stuck in the middle of the river of being, overwhelmed by death and decay, I will tell you where to find solid ground. There is an island which you cannot go beyond. It is a place of nothingness, a place of non-possession and of non-attachment. It is the total end of death and decay, and this is why I call it Nibbana. There are people who in mindfulness have realized this and are completely cooled, here and now. They do not become slaves working for Mara, for death. They cannot fall into his power." Sutonipata, the way to the beyond, Upasiva's questions. Then the Brahmin student Upasiva asked the question. "Man of Sakya," he said, "it is not possible for me to cross the massive ocean alone without help. You are the eye that sees everything. Please tell me what I can use to help me across the ocean." The Master told Upasiva, "Use these two things to help you cross the ocean: the perception of nothingness and the awareness that there is nothing. Give up sense pleasures and be free from doubts, so you will begin to see and to long for an end to craving." "Master," said Upasiva, "when a man is free from attachment to all pleasures and depends on nothingness, and everything else he lets go, he is freed in the supreme freedom from perception. But will he permanently be there and not return again?" "When a man is free," said the Buddha, "from all sense pleasures and depends on nothingness, he is free in the supreme freedom from perception. He will stay there and not return again." "Master, you have the eye that sees everything," said Upasiva. "If this man stays many years in this state without returning, will he be cooled, freed there itself? Say whether consciousness will still exist for such a person." "It is like a flame struck by a sudden gust of wind," said the Buddha. "In a flash it has gone out, and nothing more can be known about it. It is the same with a wise man freed from mental existence. In a flash he has gone out, and nothing more can be known about him." "Please explain this clearly to me, sir," said Upasiva. "You, a wise man, know precisely the way these things work. Has the man disappeared? Does he simply not exist? Or is he in some state of perpetual well-being?" "When a person has gone out, there is nothing by which you can measure him. That by which he can be talked about is no longer there for him. You cannot say that he does not exist. When all ways of being, all phenomena are removed, then all ways of description have also been removed." This is the Sutonipata, the way to the beyond, questions of Metagu. Then the Brahmin student Metagu asked his question. "Master," he said, "you are clearly a mind of full development and a master of knowledge. Where on earth do all the different kinds of suffering come from?" "This is a question," said the Master, "about the birth and growth of suffering. I'll answer it in the way that I myself have found it, which is this. All the different forms of suffering develop from the basic clinging. When a person does not realize this, he makes the basic attachment, the sluggish mind will undergo suffering. When a person realizes this, he should not make the basic attachment, seeing where suffering starts and grows." "That clearly answers what I asked, sir," said Metagu. "Please answer this one too for me, because of your certain knowledge. How do wise men cross the ocean? How can they get beyond the aging process? How can they get beyond birth, or sadness, or sorrow?" The Master replied, "I will explain to you the truth, not based on hearsay. First, realize that this way is one which can be known here and now, as a result of which a mindfully living person releases his hold on the world." "Master Teacher," Metagu said, "for me there can only be joy and delight to hear you talk about a supreme way which, when a mindfully living person knows it, releases his hold on the world." The Master continued, "In every direction there are things you know and recognize, above, below, around, and within. Leave them. Do not look to them for rest or relief. Do not let consciousness dwell on the products of existence, on things that come and go. This is how the wandering monk lives. He goes from place to place, mindful and resolute. He does without cherished objects and comes to understand the world. So he leaves aging and birth behind. He leaves sadness and sorrow behind, and he lets go of suffering here itself." "These great words of wisdom are full of joy for me," said Metagu. "Gautama's description of non-attachment is perfect. The Master clearly has let go of suffering. He has found and understood just that it is the way things work. The people whom you, the Wisdom Master, regularly teach will certainly lose suffering. As for me, I have come here to honor you, to bow down before you, a hero. I ask you, Master, to give me frequent teachings." The Master answered, "When you are aware that a man is a Brahmin, a master of knowledge, a person with nothing, a creature with no ties to being or to pleasure, then, Metagu, you have found an ocean crosser, a traveller beyond the deserts and the doubts, a voyager who has reached the other shore. This is a knower, a master of knowledge, a hero who has dissipated the pull of constant becoming, a man who has lost the clinging, the trembling, and the hunger of desire. This, I would say, is the man who has gone beyond getting old. He has gone beyond being born." At Savatthi, bhikkhus, what one intends and what one plans, and whatever one has a tendency towards, this becomes a basis for the maintenance of consciousness. When there is a basis, there is a support for the establishing of consciousness. When consciousness is established and has come to growth, there is inclination. When there is inclination, there is coming and going. When there is coming and going, there is passing away and being reborn. When there is passing away and being reborn, future birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair come to be. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. If, bhikkhus, one does not intend and one does not plan, but one still has a tendency towards something, this becomes a basis for the maintenance of consciousness. When there is a basis, there is a support for the establishing of consciousness. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. But bhikkhus, when one does not intend and one does not plan, and one does not have a tendency towards anything, no basis exists for the maintenance of consciousness. When there is no basis, there is no support for the establishing of consciousness. When consciousness is unestablished and does not come to growth, there is no inclination. When there is no inclination, there is no coming and going. When there is no coming and going, there is no passing away and being reborn. When there is no passing away and being reborn, future birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. This is from the Anguttara Nikaya, the Numerical Discourses, Book of the 11s, Sutta 2, An Act of Will. For a person endowed with virtue, consummate in virtue, there is no need for an act of will. May freedom from remorse arise in me. It is in the nature of things that freedom from remorse arises in a person endowed with virtue, consummate in virtue. For a person free from remorse, there is no need for an act of will. May joy arise in me. It is in the nature of things that joy arises in a person free from remorse. For a joyful person, there is no need for an act of will. May rapture arise in me. It is in the nature of things that rapture arises in a joyful person. For a rapturous person, there is no need for an act of will. May my body be serene. It is in the nature of things that a rapturous person grows serene in body. For a person serene in body, there is no need for an act of will. May I experience pleasure. It is in the nature of things that a person serene in body experiences pleasure. For a person experiencing pleasure, there is no need for an act of will. May my mind grow concentrated. It is in the nature of things that the mind of a person experiencing pleasure grows concentrated. For a person whose mind is concentrated, there is no need for an act of will. May I know and see things as they actually are. It is in the nature of things that a person whose mind is concentrated knows and sees things as they actually are. For a person who knows and sees things as they actually are, there is no need for an act of will. May I feel disenchantment. It is in the nature of things that a person who knows and sees things as they actually are feels disenchantment. For a person who feels disenchantment, there is no need for an act of will. May I grow dispassionate. It is in the nature of things that a person who feels disenchantment grows, dispassionate. For a dispassionate person, there is no need for an act of will. May I realize the knowledge and vision of release. It is in the nature of things that a dispassionate person realizes the knowledge and vision of release. In this way, dispassion has knowledge and vision of release as its purpose, knowledge and vision of release as its reward. Disenchantment has dispassion as its purpose, dispassion as its reward. Knowledge and vision of things as they actually are has disenchantment as its purpose, disenchantment as its reward. Concentration has knowledge and vision of things as they actually are as its purpose, knowledge and vision of things as they actually are as its reward. Pleasure has concentration as its purpose, concentration as its reward. Serenity has pleasure as its purpose, pleasure as its reward. Rapture has serenity as its purpose, serenity as its reward. Joy has rapture as its purpose, rapture as its reward. Freedom from remorse has joy as its purpose, joy as its reward. Skillful virtues have freedom from remorse as their purpose, freedom from remorse as their reward. In this way, mental qualities lead on to mental qualities. Mental qualities bring mental qualities to their consummation for the sake of going from the near to the further shore.